couple weeks out from the election, we want to jump right into the program because we're joined by the person who's leading what I think might be the most interesting gubernatorial race in state history. Attorney General Koster, welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Good morning. It's good to be back.
I want to jump right into a question that I doubt you hear at many editorial board meetings. I doubt you get from a lot of members of the media. One of the biggest issues to Missourians, guns. You've been endorsed by the NRA, a pretty historic endorsement, something you're pretty proud of. I think the question that might be on a lot of folks' mind is, I'll just quote the NRA. Hillary Clinton does not believe in the Second Amendment. That comes from the NRA Friday, July 29th. Will you be able to look her in the eye and tell her that you are not taking any Missourians' guns? And are you willing to promise the people of Missouri she'll have to take yours first?
Of course. Nobody's going to take any Missourians' guns, and I am proud to be endorsed by the NRA. I came up in western Missouri professionally as a prosecutor and have had the same stance on the Second Amendment for 20 years now, and have worked closely with protectors of the Second Amendment since I was early in my prosecutor days, all the way back in Harrisonville, Missouri. I come from a wing of the party that is perhaps a little bit more old-style Missouri. Jimmy Mathewson, a former state senator, and later Governor Roger Wilson were conservative Democrats that were very close to the agricultural community, strong on the Second Amendment, but held a belief in other democratic issues that brought them into the Democratic fold. But the conservative Democratic Party, I think, is probably in line with the values of most Missourians.
I think the real question is, though, can you make the Charlton Heston commitment out of your cold, dead hands? I think while you may trust her, I don't think Missourians and I don't think the NRA trust Hillary Clinton, but they trust you.
Yes, I can make that commitment. Nobody's coming for my hunting rifle, my hunting shotgun, and I will make the same commitment to all Missourians. That's why the National Rifle Association chose me over the Republican in this race.
Let's talk about some other folks the NRA has endorsed. Your opponent, new to the party, in Eric Greitens, he said that the leaders in Jefferson City, he said, let me just quote him verbatim, "I believe that career politicians have turned Jefferson City into a corrupt, do-nothing embarrassment." I just want to ask you, do you believe Todd Richardson is a corrupt, do-nothing embarrassment?
Absolutely not. Todd is a strong leader who I think has the potential to be a really fine Speaker of the House. Both of these political parties have idealism and a desire to make Missouri a terrific place. We may take different paths up the mountain, but the reality is both parties want to see a good school system. They want to see health care that works. They want to see an economy that roars forward. And we may disagree on policy, but never impugn the quality of another man or woman's heart. Disagree with them across the table, if you will, and try to convince them of your position, but don't impugn their heart. One of the things that I disagree with Mr. Greitens on is he doesn't seem to just be fighting Democrats. He's fighting everybody. He's fighting his own Republican Party. And when you introduce yourself to the state of Missouri with a machine gun and threatening to blow up Jefferson City as we know it, it becomes a symbol of exactly the problem that we have in Jefferson City, which is we don't have leaders that are working hard to bring people together. There's a lot, as the only person in the state of Missouri who's actually served as a leader in both of these political parties, I know as well as anybody that there is a lot of common ground between these parties, and there's a lot that we can achieve on funding schools, on funding transportation, on making this economy roar faster. Accusing everyone in Jefferson City, including members of your own party, that everybody is corrupt is not the first step that we take to bringing people back together.
Let's talk about bipartisanship. There is something you've worked with Republicans on that I guess every public policy, it's hard to see into the future. When you voted to take the limits off campaign contributions, there's a good logic. This is why should the government tell you what to do with your own money? However, part of the argument that I've defended that some of those decisions was it was very transparent. Your opponents found a loophole to get the very murky, corrupt federal system into Missouri's pretty transparent system. Has it made you really think about contribution limits, and could you pass a statute that says federal committees can't contribute into Missouri's state system?
We're going to try and make the Missouri system more transparent. I did change positions on this issue, and my vote in 2006 was to make the whole system more transparent, because we used to have a lot of legislative district committees that were being used to move contributions forward. The system was on its feet for 10 years, but it hasn't worked. And unfortunately, I think Eric has become an example of what is now wrong with the system. The Republican leader, Eric, who is trying to lead this state forward, refuses to tell the 6 million people of Missouri who his largest contributor is. I've never seen anything that lacks the transparency like Mr. Greitens' present campaign does. He refuses to release his taxes. He refuses to tell the state who his largest contributor is. And this is what has happened to our campaign finance system now. Through the interaction of federal committees and state committees, you can block out someone who has given $2 million to Eric's campaign and refuse to tell Missourians who that is. Who is the person that Eric is always going to pick up the telephone for? It's this $2 million contributor, but he won't tell Missouri who that is.
It's an interesting facet. He told NPR back in January that the most important thing was transparency. We've seen other candidates set up these super secretive PACs that don't get any responsibility for their funding. It looks like what happened in July, just 5 months later, is the perfect example of this. Can you stop this in Missouri?
Well, let me go back to how my campaign has been run. We have tried to be very transparent. I released 5 years of tax returns, 250 pages. Eric indicated that he was going to release his tax returns and then refused. Everybody in the state of Missouri knows exactly who has given money to me, but we have millions and millions of dollars of contributions that Eric refuses to identify to the voters of this state. It has been the least, Eric's campaign is the least transparent campaign for governor that has been run in this state in modern history. When we get back to Jefferson City, I think that Fred Sauer's campaign finance proposal is going to pass on November 8th, and I'm going to vote for it. The document is imperfect. There is work that needs to be done, but I think that the problem is so critical that we need to pass even an imperfect proposal and then try to work on making it better. I'm going to work with the new leadership to try and find a way to stop this non-transparent interaction between the 501c4s and Missouri campaign finance committees so that we no longer can have these Californians who are donating into non-transparent committees and then trying to decide who Missouri leaders are going to be.
An interesting thing about that, doing some research, the Missouri Republican Party has attacked you. Kind of in a quandary, though. We look back at some of the transparent donations. There was until the last report, there was about 9 contributions for between $2,000 and $3,000 from Eric Greitens. You've given a lot more to Republican causes, about 80 times as much. In fact, you've actually given his largest supporter, Sarah Steelman, more money personally than he's give the entire Republican Party in his life. Were you surprised by those attacks?
Well, everybody knows that I have been a leader in both of these political parties. I was a leader in the Republican Party for 14 years. Eric's been a leader in the Republican Party for about 2 months. So the difference in the effect that we have had on this state is marked. My goal really is not to impugn the other side, but to look forward to a time right after the elections and then after the swearing in, where we are coming back together. The wounds of this election season, old friendships that have separated, they're going to come back together again. And I think that this coming legislative session, because I know Todd Richardson, I know Ron Richard, I know what's in their heart, they have the same desire to move this state forward. I really am very optimistic that we're going to get back in January and make real progress on serious issues.
Mr. Kaiser, thank you for joining us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel featuring the first time with Becky Lohman on the show. We're going to leave you first with this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
Okay, go.
It's time for early childhood education.
Adults, every child in Missouri deserves pre-K. Hey, wait for me.
Investing in our education will improve the economy.
Preparing kids like me for better jobs. Raising graduation rates.
Missouri has the lowest cigarette tax in the nation.
If you don't smoke, you don't pay. Politicians can't touch any of the money.
Not a dime.
Sorry, politicians, it's for our education.
Vote yes.
Your children deserve it.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
For years, Jason Kander's been trying to create a liberal majority.
They're going to call you pinkos, commies, lefties, activists, liberals, and tree huggers. If you stay true to your values, they're going to have to call you the majority.
Kander values expand Obamacare, higher job-killing taxes, even a huge new energy tax, more Washington policy mandates.
They're going to call you pinkos, commies, lefties, activists, liberals, and tree huggers.
Jason Kander, wrong for the U.S. Senate, wrong for Missouri.
I'm Roy Blunt, and I approve this message.
As Attorney General, I prosecuted crooked Wall Street banks and Medicaid fraud, returning over $500 million to you, all while operating my office under budget every year. The only time my opponent managed a budget, he was caught taking $700,000 from his veterans charity. Now, Eric Greitens says experience shouldn't matter. I'm Chris Koster, and I say governor of Missouri is not an entry-level job.
Koster for governor.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Opinion Maker panel time. We're joined for the first time by Becky Lum with Catalyst. Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Jennifer Byrd, Mr. Republican in St. Louis. Good to have you.
Thank you very much.
Richard McIntosh, welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you.
Jeff Say, and Barry Aycock from Southeast Missouri, businessman extraordinaire. I would say you're the head of the Republican Party. It'd be kind of like saying Jeff Mazur is. Interesting interview with the Attorney General. He says the NRA says he will stand up to Hillary Clinton on guns. Do you believe he will?
I believe Chris Koster's a man of his word. I've known Chris Koster for a long time, and he's the best leader to lead this state forward. If he looks you straight in the eye and tells you that he can stand up to Hillary Clinton, he'll do it.
Richard McIntosh, you're a guy who's from rural Missouri, lives in rural Missouri now. That's an important issue to folks in rural Missouri. I know it gets looked down their nose at by editorial boards and big elitists, but that's an issue people vote on. And I think the NRA has said we trust Chris Koster. He has a perfect voting record. Do you believe he means it? Do you believe he can do it?
I know he believes, I know he can do it, and I do believe it. You have seen him do it for guns for the past 10, 15 years. He has been very consistent in his position, and he has not wavered. 100% believe he will stand up to Hillary on guns.
Jennifer Byrd, the NRA came down on the side of Chris Koster. I kind of think, I thought it was interesting though. A president of your own party, she comes to you and says, I'm going to take this segment of guns. What does he do? He says he'll stand up to her.
Well, I think that remains to be seen, and I'm going to hope that if he wins, that he will do so.
Interesting poll came out this week. It basically showed the race was not changed much over the course of last week. 3-point margin of error, bumped up to a 7-point Koster lead, but that's last week it was 6. Do you see the race staying where it is? I personally think Greitens' argument of you've endorsed Hillary Clinton, you're for Obamacare, that seems to me to be, it's not something about everybody's corrupt or whatever. Mm-hmm. Those are real differences, and I think might matter to the majority of the state.
I agree with that statement. I think there is a tremendous level of fear amongst Missourians of a Hillary Clinton presidency, certainly her policies.
Is that fear warranted?
I think it is warranted, absolutely. I'm very concerned about her.
Interesting race. Do you think the race is about there? I mean, I don't know that the ads that have came out by Greitens would have had time to be reflected in this poll that was taken Tuesday, but I do think that is a message that seems pretty coherent and well articulated.
Right. I think he's hitting his sweet spot. To your point, the corruption thing, his attack on the legislature is kind of falling flat. And I think this Obamacare thing is where he's really going to surge a little bit. But we've been kind of gridlocked in this 5 to 7 points. But we'll see with what Trump and Hillary are doing right now. It'll be interesting.
Richard Mack, it's been interesting. You'll see some folks that'll be in a Facebook post that they didn't put up supporting Greitens, and then you'll get a text that says, ugh. Some of them are choking their pride down and saying, yeah, you've called me a criminal and an embarrassment, but I'm going to stand in the picture. I don't know that they mean it.
There's several people in the legislature have told him they cannot support him over that comment.
Well, I thought it was interesting. You know, one guy you don't do cheap shots on is Ron Richard, because he'll stick you. He'll just come right, and he doesn't mince a lot of words. And I don't know that I think Ron Richard probably supports Eric Greitens, but when he came for kind of a cheap shot on the Senate, Ron Richard had no problem saying, hey, you need to learn about this place before you come and score cheap shots. I wouldn't mess with Ron Richard.
I would not mess with Ron Richard or Mike Kehoe.
Barry Aycock, this is where you see the race is, about a decent lead. But if you're Chris Koster, that is not a lead that you can feel overly confident about, right?
I think it's going to keep trending his way. I mean, I've never seen a
Koster's way?
Yes, I've never seen a coalition of Missouri Farm Bureau, NRA. Last week, Chris Koster Republicans hosted an event for Chris Koster in Dunklin County, and it was the all-star team of Republicans that actually hosted that event. So I'm going to commend Farm Bureau for staying true to their principles and supporting the people that support them, because most of the time Farm Bureau does support the Republican at all costs. And those Republicans that were at that event, and it was the all-star team of the Boot Hill, not just the Dunklin County Republicans, and it was quite a list of people that was there.
It really is historic.
Becky Loman, I think that's an interesting thing with Farm Bureau. You know, you could say you're not a partisan group. Just because of where people believe, you fall on those lines. I think Farm Bureau gained a lot of credibility by being kind of where they were, following their formula.
Right. And they've obviously been doing this for years. Voters trust them. They look to them. They vet a candidate properly and effectively. And I don't think that that's taken lightly, them endorsing Koster.
General Roberta, you're on the ground working in Republican politics. We've heard the argument that, well, maybe the president of the Farm Bureau in the county would go along with this, but the members don't. You actually are on the ground. You're connecting groups with voters and candidates with voters. Do you think that's true?
It's really interesting because in this race we have a former Democrat running as a Republican and a former Republican running as a Democrat. So I think that's created a little bit of angst and even some confusion, because I've heard many people argue the fact that Koster was a Republican and that his record with in the past has brought this endorsement. But then, there are people who say they don't know Eric Greitens. And so, just because you are a Republican, are you going to automatically get that endorsement? There's a question mark there. And there is a question mark that there are still some Republicans that still support Koster.
And my take is that probably on a lot of ag policy, the legislature's going to pass a pro-agriculture agenda. They have since Republicans have taken over.
Correct.
And I assume Governor Greitens probably signs that pro-agriculture agenda.
I would think so.
They've shown with Governor Nixon, they'll just override it.
Correct.
Richard Bad, that's a thing on the ground in the Capitol. Look, quick predictions here. On some of these issues, whether Missouri Right to Life endorses Eric Greitens or not, he's probably signing the bill, or the legislature show they have no qualms about overriding on abortion.
No, they don't. If they can find another issue to bring up, they're running out of issues.
So, Barry Aycock, you're an agribusinessman, one of the biggest ones in the state. Do you believe that this is just a top-level, Farm Bureau president thing, or will this matter to the members?
I talk to many members every day, and it's a lot bigger than that. Chris Koster, Right to Farm, he's been with them for the last 20 years. I mean, it's what's in his heart. He has a vision for rural Missouri, and I think it shines through with Farm Bureau.
You think the race tightens?
I'm sorry?
Do you think the race tightens from 7 points?
I think it stays where it's at.
Really? I'm going to say the race tightens. What do you think?
I think it will tighten.
Yeah.
I absolutely do, because I think the Hillary and the Obamacare are going to be really settling in on people. I know a lot of people are very upset, very unhappy with Obamacare. I am personally. Sure. It is adversely.
Have you found people that like it? Because I haven't found those folks,
Not
actually.
one single person, and even Democrats. Now, I grew up in New City, so I have all my old Democrat friends. Even they cannot find a defense for Obamacare.
Yeah, the race tightens.
I think it tightens. Looking at the primary race, Greitens kind of surged at the end and pulled ahead when I think he started at the bottom. I think we're going to see something similar. I don't know that he'll pull ahead of Koster, but I think it'll be close.
Be right back where we talk state treasurer's race and some of the amendments on the ballot. We'll leave you with this week's Missouri Times poll in the Attorney General's race.
We've seen it before. Another smokescreen claiming to help the kids.
Big Tobacco needs your help, young man.
But we can't trust politicians and unelected bureaucrats to do what they say.
It's for the kids.
Enough is enough. Vote no on Amendment 3. It's just another Big Tobacco scheme.
Nobody likes power outages, including us. That's why Ameren, Missouri is investing in new equipment and smarter technology to reduce outages and keep pace with future needs. And it's working. We're in the top 25% in the nation for reliability. And on average, our rates are 18% lower than other Midwestern states. Making sure the power's there when you need it. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Politicians are like pigs at the trough. Income tax, property tax, payroll tax, gas tax, state, county, and city sales taxes that can run a dime on the dollar. Now the politicians and bureaucrats want new sales taxes on the services we use every day. Services like rent, daycare, doctor visits, car and house repairs, delivery, even haircuts. It's enough to make you squeal. Protect Missourians from these new taxes by voting yes for Amendment 4, the Taxpayer Protection Amendment.
Stephen was born on August 18th, 2004. When he was about 5 months old, we noticed he had a white birthmark. And almost immediately, the dermatologist looked concerned. Stephen was diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis, which caused epilepsy. He's on the autism spectrum. Stephen, to this day, is almost completely nonverbal. I gained a great appreciation for how difficult it can be for a lot of families. Stephen's why I'm an advocate. My first year in the Senate, one of the first issues I got involved with was autism insurance reform, to be a voice for those families that were just being denied coverage. I channeled all of my energy in making sure that that bill passed so that these families could have these life-changing therapies. There are thousands of kids now who are doing things that they couldn't do before. There's plenty that divides us, but these are the kind of things that should bring us together. The resolve that Stephen has given me to fight for a better world is something that I'm very grateful for.
You should have been in the commercial break. We were getting heat from Jennifer. She was nuking everyone, which is why we wanted to have her on for so long. Let's talk about the state treasurer's race, though. Eric Schmitt up 9 points over Judy Baker. I hear a lot of folks that are economic conservatives. He wrote the two biggest tax cut bills ever in the history of the state. Say, look, there's issues with Donald Trump. There's issues made with Eric Greitens. Eric Schmitt is somebody we can get behind as a conservative, not just for this race, but for other things.
Absolutely. I absolutely would agree with that statement, and I do. I'm very excited about Schmitt. I believe that Schmitt will win his race.
Big Woman, you're somebody that knows a lot about children's issues working in the Capitol. His first ad was very different, a minute long, played here on This Week in Missouri Politics. I thought it was extremely interesting and a very different take than everybody else is going this cycle.
I thought it was one of the best ads in Missouri. It was sincere. You realized why he's doing this. You see the good that he's done. I think he knocked it out of the park.
Richard McIntosh, it was a different ad. I wonder, we just talked in the last segment about guns and people that might be angry. Maybe didn't play to them, played to a whole different angle than a lot of the ads that are on right now. Does Judy Baker have an ad that can contradict that?
I think she does. The truth is, the truth is that he and Judy are both very fine people.
I agree with that.
And yes, she can. She's done some good work in the past. He's done some good, solid public policy work. And this is a race where either one who wins, Missourians win.
So, Barry Agag, this is an interesting race where you're seeing Schmitt do a little bit better than the normal Republican ballot. He's got a very, very, very large money advantage. Do you think that Judy Baker can make that up in the last, 2.5 weeks?
I think just like the Eric Greitens, Chris Coster race, Judy Baker's going to close in the coming days, and she's got a chance to pull this out, but she's got it left to do. But this is one Democrat you're not going to hear anything negative towards Eric Schmitt. He's just a great guy and a great person, one of the most sincere guys in politics.
From a political perspective, though, it seems to me because of the money deficit, Judy Baker needs a good year for the Democratic ticket.
Yes, and I think that all depends on Donald Trump and how he closes in Missouri in the last 18 days of this race.
Richard McIntosh, you've seen a lot of campaigns. I've seen statewide campaigns that spend the most, that on these down ballot races sometimes go the way of the party. I believe she's done enough to where she's very qualified enough that if there is a big Democrat year, she could benefit from that.
Guys, Judy Moriarty beat John Hancock. Grassroots.
Good point.
Not a lot of money.
Good point.
Beat him like a drum.
But that was in a very good Democratic year. Do you think that matters? Can Schmitt outpace a good Democratic year?
I think so. I think his character and his reputation will carry him.
I think that's one thing about that ad, though. That may be, if there's a good Republican year, the down ticket probably wins. Maybe that ad is pegged at going in case there is a bad Republican year. That's the kind of ad that can cut through to people to make him win even in a tough year, like Peter Kinder's done before.
Right, and let's not forget that the Republican that's surging the most did not have a primary. So we haven't seen any attack ads against Senator Schmitt before the general election. So we have that coupled with this sincerity, this ad that he's a great person, and you kind of just buy into it because you haven't really heard anything negative about him.
Let's take a moment and talk about some of the take a moment and talk about some of the amendments on the ballot. Amendment 3, a tax on cigarettes for early childhood, been wildly talked about. I'm not sure more by the media than anybody else. Where do you come down?
I'm opposed to that, obviously. And I mean, you know, it's going to be another slush fund, in my opinion. It's going to be promises made and not kept. And, you know, I think it's also a way to exclude. It's larger business excluding smaller business. I don't agree with it.
Take a moment. The cigarette taxes get closer and closer every time. Is this when a cigarette tax makes it over?
You know, I don't think it does. I think there's so much controversy surrounding it, and I don't think it passes.
But you've seen a lot of these come and go. This was an interesting thing where they used a lot of the lawsuits. Chuck Hatfield did very good work making this controversial through the legal process that made it into the news. All earned media. Does it get across?
I don't think it gets across. And what I'm going to say may not be popular, but we've got to stop siloing dollars. It's killing us at the state budget level. We cannot move dollars where they need to be moved to meet the needs of Missourians. That's why you have elected officials. That's why you vote for them.
Amendment 4, something that says you can't put taxes on services. Barry Aycock, I don't know about you. To me, if you can keep them from taxing something, where do you sign up?
Well, that's a really good question, and some of these amendments are so confusing. Jennifer kind of educated me before we come on the show. I mean, I was before I was against it after she explained it to me. So taxes on services, I'm 100% against.
If you can, Richard, we may disagree, but if you can stop them from taxing something proactively, let's stop them, right?
Especially since I sell services.
Good, he's on board with
I love how he just comes right out and says, yeah, that's in my bailiwick. I think Amendment 4, if you could stop people from taxing something, I mean, do they need another dime?
No, exactly. That's exactly right. And, you know, let's not forget about the fact that, you know, a tax on service is going to hit the elderly, the disabled, and the low income
and business
first
owners.
and worst.
Let's start there.
Well, I'm very sympathetic to business owners. We have a small business, so obviously, you know, that's important to me. But looking from a purely people standpoint, you know, seniors don't tend to paint their own homes or clean their own gutters. You know, low income are struggling to make a $20 copay to a doctor's visit. Do you want to pay tax on the visit on top of that? And then disabled. I mean, so those are the people that are going to be hit first and worst.
Becky Lum, real quick, does it pass?
I don't think it passes. I think we're going to see it fail.
Want to thank everybody, especially our new viewers in Kansas City, for joining us on 38 The Spot. Please, everyone in Kansas City, join us. Boulevard Brewing tomorrow, 5 to 7. We'll be back. Go to MissouriTimes.com for the overtime segment, where I'll take my tie off and explain to you how German newspaper publishers don't paint their house either. See you next week. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you in part by Spire and Sterling Bank.